You're listening to Feathers, a podcast of stories of women walking in faith. I hope these stories inspire you and encourage you to take flight in your own faith. I'm your host, Amy Bennett, and this is Season 7, Episode 4. Feathers is an outreach of Abiding Ministries. Find more encouragement at abidingministries.net. Well, hey friend, I am so glad to have you join me for this episode. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of your time this week here. This week on Feathers, we have Morgan DeVonzo. Morgan runs a new ministry called Forever Loved SC, where they actually go into local strip clubs. Yes, I said strip clubs, and minister to the women working there. Morgan is actually the daughter-in-law of a friend of mine, and she recently shared a blog post that had been written about her, and I was just so intrigued by it. You know, certainly it's not something that you hear of too often, so I wanted to hear how it all started and what that kind of ministry looks like. And I'm really excited for you to hear this conversation and hear all about it too. So let's get started with my conversation with Morgan. Hey Morgan, and welcome to Feathers today.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you're here. How about we start off and have you introduce yourself, your family, and what keeps you busy these days?
Well, my name is Morgan. I live in Anderson, South Carolina. I'm a stay-at-home mom to a little girl named Haley. She will be 3 next month, and she keeps me super busy. Before I quit my job and was able to be a stay-at-home mom, I worked in the financial industry, doing some like banking and investing. But I'm glad to be out of that now, and I'm glad to be staying at home. My husband is a youth pastor, and he's been at our current church for 2 years now. We were at a different church for 6 before that. So that's just some about my family. We have a cat. My daughter loves my cat. My cat does not love my daughter.
Aww.
Yeah, it's sad.
And well, I love... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, things I do to stay busy, just honestly, keeping up with a 3-year-old is...
That will keep you busy.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I love the age of 3. Well, I love... Every age, I think, has some great things about it. But age 3 was one of my favorite things because they really started talking and saying really funny stuff. I think between ages 3 and 4, they get really funny. Like you never know what's going to come out of their mouth.
Yeah, she has us laughing all the time.
Yes, I really wish I would have just followed my kids around with video cameras more. Like when my oldest was 3, gosh, what year would that have been? Like 2005. So like the iPhone, I don't think had even come out yet, or it was just coming out. So it's not like today where you have, video camera recorders or whatever in your pocket. So you had to use like the big handheld device. So it was a little bit harder, but yeah, I would say video record as much as you can. Although it comes as a surprise. It's hard to catch them.
Yes, it is.
You never know when it's going to hit. So, let's talk about how we know each other. So let's see, it would be your in-laws. Linda and Rob.
Yep.
I went to church with them. Gosh, I was trying to think of it earlier today. We've known each other, I think it's been 8 years.
Oh, wow.
This year. And we were in our, well, it depends what they call them, small group, journey group, D group. We've called them so many things at our church. But we were in group together for several years. Okay. And so we've stayed connected. And so I feel like I've been on a journey for you and Mike and all of that. So it was even fun you telling us what you guys were doing, because I haven't stayed in contact with as much since they've moved away, since Linda and Rob moved away, and to hear what you guys were doing. So I didn't realize you guys had moved churches.
Yeah, we did. Mike was a youth pastor at the other church as well, and then he's now officially the associate/youth pastor at the current church.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, it's good. He's got a lot of good responsibilities, and he's learning a lot, and we really enjoy the church, being a part of the church family and stuff. So it's been a good transition.
Yeah, and it's great you're able to stay home with Haley. That's so great. Good times. Well, I had to get connected with you, which I don't think you and I have been connected at all. Just I had known you through Linda and Rob. But and by the way, hey, Linda and Rob, I know you're going to listen. We love you.
Love you.
I had seen Linda post on Facebook about a new ministry you had started. And it's actually a ministry into strip clubs in your area. So I read a little article that you had, I don't know if you had written it or somebody had written it about you on somebody else's site. And it was just like fascinating. So I reached out to Linda and to see if I could talk to you, and you graciously agreed. So I am just on pins and needles wanting to hear sort of what's kind of brought you to this. So tell us a little bit about the ministry itself, and then I want to back up and kind of hear how this all started.
Okay. The ministry is called Forever Loved SC, and we are just a group of girls, not from any particular church, just from different churches. There are 7 of us on the team, and we go into strip clubs twice a month, and we bring gifts and snacks and food and cards and whatever else we can bring that month to kind of just bless the girls while they work. It's a different ministry approach than most, I think, because it's a place that a lot of people wouldn't go. It's different than serving in church nursery or serving in the in the cafe or anything. It's just a lot of people have never heard of it. So it's really interesting, and it's been really awesome to get involved in it. I've learned a lot. I've really grown to love the girls. So it's been a real blessing to be a part of.
Well, I want to jump into, the approach to ministry and what you guys are doing, but I want to jump back. Let's talk about how in the world this started. It's like, so if you hadn't really heard of this, and it's obviously not something that, it's not something that every church has really, and I don't think it's anything that every community has. So it's not like, you hear about this all the time. So tell me, tell me how you got in to create this.
Well, about a year ago, I guess it was a year and a half ago now, like last May 2016 or so, I felt God kind of put on my heart to go into strip clubs and start a ministry in strip clubs. So I'm like, okay, how does that work?
Well, how does that, so that feels a little bit random. God can be random. Yeah. But have you heard of anybody that had that ministry, or had you done any ministry in a strip club before? Like, where do you think that came from?
Read an article online about it. It was not too long before, but I read it and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then it just continued to be on my mind. So I was just like, okay, well, maybe this is what God wants for this area. So I just was like, okay, well, let's pursue this. So I contacted a friend, and she wanted to do it with me, and then something happened there, and she wasn't able to go in to the clubs with me, and so I was kind of on my own. And I called around to some different strip clubs, and I asked how can we bring in gifts, because I didn't want to pay the cover to go in there and be like a customer.
So let me just interject here. So is it the article that you read? Is that what they kind of did, was just went in to bring gifts? Is that how you knew to do that?
Yeah, I think so. And they visited every so often and brought gifts and brought food and stuff. So I thought, well, that would be really cool to do, because I'd never heard of this kind of ministry.
Yeah, I haven't either. That's why I'm so curious. I'm like, wow, out of the blue, we're doing this. So I'm just wondering how you got all your ideas. That's very cool.
Yeah. So
anyway, keep going. Yeah, you called.
Yeah, I called around, and they all said, if you're not part of a church organization, we can't let you in, which I thought was interesting because, so that showed me that I guess groups had done it in the past. But I obviously was not part of an organization. I was just me. And so that kind of ended there. And then in December, I had just been praying about it and thinking about it for about 8 months at that point. And I just Googled strip club ministry, and I came across an organization called Strip Church. that started on from the Strip in Vegas, and they did that. They go into the clubs and deliver. Well, they don't, but they train and equip people across the United States who want to do that. So I submitted an application with them and had an interview, and they brought me on as a network partner. And so the way that it works is that I'm under the Strip Church umbrella, but I'm not a part of Strip Church.
But they're doing your training and stuff like that?
They do the training, right. They have access to training, to resources, to mentoring, to scholarships if we ever get to the point where we're working with a girl who really wants to get out of the industry but obviously can't pay her power bill because $7 an hour at Waffle House isn't cutting it.
Right.
Strip Church will step in and provide scholarships for things like that. So that it's been a really, really good organization as far as like training me and preparing me on what to expect when we go into the clubs and issues that we run into, like what do we do about this, and so it's been great.
So did you get training with them before you even went into a club at all?
Yes, I did. And they were not, it wasn't like a whole lot of training, but it was just some good what to expect videos, what to do, how to get into the clubs, what to do once you're in there, what to do for like aftercare and follow up. It was just a really good overview of how to, I guess, successfully do this ministry, because it's different than anything else.
Yeah. So what was that first night like going into a club? What does that look like? Are you going backstage? Are you going in the room and interacting with people? What does that look like?
Well, for the first time, I went with a group in Columbia, South Carolina, and it's about an hour and a half from me, and they've been going into the clubs for about 5 years. They're also under the Strip Church network, so I was able to connect with them. That's the great thing about Strip Church is that they have 250 or so network partners all across the U.S., and we can like bounce ideas off of each other and look, ask each other for advice and help and share resources and share, drug rehab information and all that kind of stuff. That they're just a great resource to go to. So that first night I had never been in a strip club in my life. And I showed up in Columbia. It was super late. It was like 10 maybe. And we were going to go to, I think 3 clubs with them. And the first club we went to, I was so nervous because I'd never been in a situation like that. And it wasn't anything like I expected. I always pictured strip clubs as kind of scary, places where bad people hang out, and it wasn't that at all. I was able to connect with the girls and see the girls as daughters of God, which is what they are. And in that particular night, that group had been going for so long that they had established a good relationship with all the clubs, and they were able to go back into the dressing rooms. So we would hang out in there for about an hour or so in each dressing room and just kind of talk to the girls as they came in off the floor, and we gave them some chocolates, and the gifts had their names, the group's name and phone number and contact info in there. So it was really interesting to see how they ran their ministry.
So what do you think, I'm just thinking through this, like what is your big win? Like what would it look like to say this ministry is successful? And obviously even spending time with anybody and loving on them and giving them a gift is a win. I mean, but like what would be the path of real like success for you as a ministry?
Ultimately, the goal is to remind these girls that they're loved by Jesus. Whether that means, of course, we would love to see them come out of the industry. That would be the ideal choice, and enter a relationship with Jesus. But right now, our goal is just to love on them because they're very closed off. A lot of them have been hurt. A lot of them have been, they just give and give and give of themselves all the time, and they don't get anything in return. So right now, successful nights for us are great conversations, connections, being able to pray with these ladies. But long term, a successful ministry would look like God breaking down the barriers of their hearts, so they can enter a relationship with Him and hopefully eventually leaving the industry.
So I'm just curious. I've heard. So I've never been in a strip club, and don't know anybody that I know of that's worked in one. You've mentioned already issues with resources, with money, and that's a reason that women get into this. You've mentioned drug rehab, so I assume that drugs play a part in some of these ladies' lives, addictions.
Yes.
What other struggles do you see that they are struggling with in the reasons they're there? And the reason I'm asking is because I'm thinking this. I've heard, well, these are all, a lot of, or some women, they go into strip club and they're educated. They're not poor. They're not abusive. They don't have drug problems. It's a good way to get money, kind of just on the side. Do you find that's the case, or what is it? What is kind of a woman who is in this type of profession like?
I think there's a good mixture. I think there are some that are in college and wanting to work their way through school, and who do this as a job and kind of separate themselves, can kind of like compartmentalize their job from their school and their life and their family. I also see that there are a lot of girls who are in this because their moms were strippers, or their sisters, or this is just what they've known. This is how they've grown up. And I think that's probably the bulk of the ladies that we meet, is just that this is what they know. This is what they've been doing since they were young. It's a good way to make money. They can walk away. One lady told us one time that she made over $1,000 in one night.
Wow.
So just a good way to make money, quick money, easy money. And I think another part of them, which this is totally not a Forever Love goal, is not to get into the sex trafficking, but it is something that we are probably exposed to without even knowing. A lot of these ladies have pimps or have boyfriends or husbands even who force them to work. And a lot of times we think of sex trafficking as kids, chained to a bed in a basement, and that's not what it is. That can be what it is, but it can also be something as simple as, the girl next door is a stripper, and the man that she or her boyfriend makes her strip and makes her bring money back, and if she doesn't bring back enough money, he beats her, and so that's a form of trafficking, and sex slavery. And it's hard to know, what percentage of the ladies that we see are involved in that. But I would guess that of the 50 we see in all three of our clubs combined, there's definitely a handful. So it's difficult, but it's not something that's talked about, and it's not something that we talk about because we don't want to get shut down by the club. The last thing we want is the club to think that we're in there to try to shut them down or get them in trouble for trafficking. That's not the goal. So we've never run across that before, where we had a situation where that was confirmed and we had to deal with it. I'm not sure if we will, but for right now, to answer your question in the longest way possible, I think that there are those three groups, and that's how and why women get involved in stripping and why many of them stay involved in stripping.
I can imagine, I mean, just from what you're saying, is just a lot of them might be emotionally blocked off. If this is a generational thing, that I just feel like there must be so much a lack of hope for their future. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I can imagine that you guys are needing to encourage them and give them hope. Have you had a moment yet where you really felt like, maybe we are making a difference here?
Yeah, we've had a couple of those times. A couple months ago, one of the ladies at one of our clubs, well, we don't go into that particular club. We drop stuff off at the desk, and we've gotten to know a couple of the girls there, but we don't go back into the dressing room. We've just not gotten to that point with that club, and we hope that we can in the future. But right now, we're just happy to be allowed to drop gifts off and bring food and form a relationship with the bouncers and stuff. But when we got there, we dropped gifts off and hung out and talked to the bouncers for a little bit, and then as we were walking back out to the car, one of the ladies came running out and wanted to hug us, and she said, "I love nights when you come. What did you bring?" And we walked her back inside and showed her what gifts we brought, and she was so excited. And that's just so fun, because it just shows that they are thankful and that they look forward to our visits, and look forward to getting snacks and goodies and stuff.
And I'm sure some positive attention.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So on the flip side of that, talk about a moment where, and maybe there's not one, I don't know. Talk about a moment where maybe you wondered, like, what in the world you'd gotten yourself into.
Oh, well, the beginning, starting this ministry up and getting it going was very difficult. We knew that it would be a very long process, because strip clubs are not typically a place that church girls would hang out. And we knew that these clubs would be like, well, what are you doing? And some of them were. They were shocked that we wanted to come in and hang out. And so in the beginning, we had a lot of dead ends, like nights with just kind of disappointing nights, where we knew that it would take a while to get in and form relationships, but we did not expect them to like slam their doors in our faces. But some of the clubs did. And that's discouraging, but at the same time, we just trusted that those are not the clubs that God wanted us in at that time.
And you guys were just trying to drop off gifts at that point, and they just slammed the door. Yeah.
One of them told us that he told the manager, which we had been dropping gifts off there for a few months, and then one time we went in and the owner was at the desk, and he said, "No, this is a place of business, and we can't have this happening anymore." So that's disappointing, but we just pray that God's going to open the doors and close the doors that we don't need to be in, Mm-hmm. So that can be very frustrating, disappointing at times.
Yeah.
But it's great, because the clubs that we have been going into, we've been going into now since March, and they know us. Like, we went even last night, and as soon as we opened the door to the club, the bouncers who we could see through the window, they said, third Friday, woohoo! Because they know that we come on the third Friday and we bring snacks, and they love that. And that's so fun that they know that, and that's just a blessing.
Yeah, well, I mean, just bringing any kind of light and love and stuff, it's so fantastic.
Yeah.
So what is like one thing you kind of wish people could understand about strip clubs or the girls that work there? Maybe some misconceptions, just something that you wish you could communicate to everybody that you've learned so far.
One thing that I would want to let people know is that strippers are people. They are not, just girls that you see on TV that are dirty and gross, and just the kind of the misconception that you have about strippers is that oh, she's a stripper, she's a slut, she's a whatever, and that's not always the case. In fact, I don't think that's ever the case. A lot of these women just have chosen some different paths in life than I have, but as I get down to talking to them, we can talk to them all night about things like parenting and how in the world to get a 3-year-old to stay in her bed, in her big girl bed. Like, that's my struggle, or was.
Same.
Yes.
Same struggles. A lot of the same
Yes,
struggles.
we have the same struggles. Yeah. And, it's fun because we're able to be like, how is your kid 18 months and potty trained? Mine is not even 3 yet, and she's not potty trained or nowhere close. And, like, we're able to connect on that level, just on the level that we're all familiar with, on things that we're all familiar with. And it's neat to do that because that gives me the ability to see them not as dancers, not as strippers, but as just women, just like me, who have just picked a different job than I have. And that's the thing that I have come to know as the biggest misconception of strippers, is that they are just like us.
Yeah. Well, that was really eye-opening what you're talking about. It's just that maybe it's just a way of life, from their family. You know, why would they see it as anything, bad or wrong if their mom had done it or aunts had done it or, whatever. That was a real eye-opener for me already. Goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's crazy. You would be surprised at the number of ladies that that have probably stripped in the past.
Really?
Yes, it's
something that people turn to. Is it something that people turn to you wouldn't think of because of financial reasons? Is that it?
I would say so. I would say that's definitely part of it. And then, they might do it for a while to get out of their financial issues and then find other things, find other jobs, or maybe they do it younger in life and then grow up and go on to have kids and normal marriages and normal lives, and it's not something they ever really talk about. And then there are some who do that for that reason, for the financial reason, and then just get stuck in it and never get out. Just because the money's so good,
So I'm just wondering if it's financial or if there's some emotional sort of, I don't know, need that is being filled by doing this, or no, it's really, you think it's more financial than it is anything.
It's hard to tell. But you know what? Every single girl that I have talked to does not want to do this forever. They say that 89%
it's a temporary thing.
Yeah, 89% of the women in the sex industry, and that, I guess that includes stripping, that might include like porn, I'm not sure, but just in the sex industry as a whole, say that they want to get out. They don't want to do that forever. So that's,
I guess, that people see as a stopgap, I guess.
Right. Yeah, that's a huge number. So I don't think that it's anything that is emotionally fulfilling. I don't really know, because I can't imagine that giving of yourself constantly, night after night after night, for hours and hours and hours, is any kind of emotional.
Oh, I'm sure. No, I'm not thinking that it is emotionally fulfilling at all. I'm just wondering if people go into it thinking that it's going to fill something in their hearts, or, get the attention, like, even if it's negative attention, to get the attention. If it's really an emotional thing, of course, it's not going to be fulfilling because, like you said, you're giving of yourself all the time. And
I'm sure a lot,
positive way.
I'm sure it's not uncommon for women to grow to love that validation from men, I'm sure that's...
I think it's interesting. You just brought up men. Have you had any contact or impressions, or I'm just thinking of the men who go?
We have.
Have you had any interaction with them? Any sort of thing you've learned from that side of things?
We haven't really had too much interaction with them. We have been hit on multiple times by men, like in the parking lot or even inside. But I think the thing that I've discovered with the men, a lot of times, you think of men who go to strip clubs as womanizers, and, you could name a bunch of words that could describe strip club goers. But I think the main root of why they're there is because they're broken. And, without Jesus, that sin just creeps right in. And even with Jesus, that sin creeps right in.
For sure. Yeah.
And one thing I've noticed is that it's hard to be mad at them. In the beginning, I was kind of upset with the men. Like, how could you be doing this? How could you be in here objectifying these women? But the more I've realized, the more I've looked at it and the more I've thought about it, the more I've realized that those men are there because they struggle with sin as well. You know, it's a sin issue, and we can't expect the unsaved people to act like they're saved.
Right.
People in this world who are unsaved are not going to act like they're saved, and we can't get mad at them for that.
Yeah.
So
for sure. So let's think about your ministry. It's been up for about a year. Is that right?
About 10 months, 10 months.
I think I've seen some people, you take donations and stuff. If people want to like get involved with your ministry, with yours specifically, how can people do that?
Well, it is, as you can imagine, kind of expensive to provide gifts and food for about 60 girls per month, plus the 20 or so men that we provide foods for and provide gifts for, like the bouncers and the managers and DJs and bartenders. So we are always looking for people if they want to, if you're out at the store and you see a bag of candy on sale, like pick that up and grab it, and we'll put it in gift bags. So that's super duper helpful to have people.
So what are the things so I'm thinking real specific here for me. If I see something like specifically, like what kind of things do you guys give them usually? Like
it
Hershey
depends.
Kisses type stuff?
Yeah, it depends. A lot of times we do like chocolates. One month when the Old Navy flip-flops were on sale for $1, we did a pair of flip-flops for every girl.
Fun.
We just finished a t-shirt fundraiser where each of the ladies and the men actually will get a t-shirt for Christmas, and it has has a Forever Loved heart on it and the words Forever Loved and the Bible verse on it.
I love thinking about them wearing that, and it says Forever Loved.
Yeah, I mean, how cool is that?
Yeah, for sure.
And next month, October, we're going to do some fall, some fall colors of trail mix, kind of with M&Ms and candy corn and pretzels and Cheez-Its. And so it's just like anything that we find.
Like little goodie bag type thing.
Yeah, little goodie bags. That's a good way to put it. One friend that I have, she was at the store and she found little jewelry trays on sale, and there were 9 of them, and she picked them up, and we were able to give those out. So just anything that anybody can find on sale, or candles, or if they have a direct sales company. I have a lady in my church who sells Avon, and she gives perfume samples and lipstick samples and creams and
that's so good. Samples.
Yeah. So that's been really great to be able to have people bring stuff and say, I want to bake cookies this month for you guys, or I got you this candy, or I found these at the store and for your gift bags for your girls. And that's wonderful because that takes a lot of the pressure and the financial burden off of our team.
Yeah, and I'm sure you guys can take monetary donations too, right?
Yes, we do, and we have, and we use those very sparingly for gifts and for anything that, when needs come up.
So if somebody is in maybe California and it's not easy to get us, to ship you guys something or whatever, and maybe they just want to start something like this, their own town, what would that look like? Is that something you start at Strip Church? Is that something you would recommend?
Yeah, I would recommend that just because that's how I started, and they have, like I said, great resources and great training and what to expect. And they can go to www.stripchurch.com, and they can find if there's already a Strip Church network team operating in their area. They can jump in and join. Yeah,
because they might have somebody already going and they don't even know it.
Yeah. If not, if that's something that they want to do and get started, I would definitely recommend praying, because a lot of times we can hear of a really cool idea or something, fun and new and want to jump right in it, but, God might not have prepared our hearts for that specific ministry. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I, for one, cannot serve in church nursery. Or children's ministry. Like, I like my own kid, but that's the extent. So
yeah, I
am just not gifted to serve in that area, and other people are, and I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah, I do the 1-year-old classes, so yeah, and I love my 1-year-olds, and if my husband can't do it, he's like, no, a room full of 12 1-year-olds does not sound like my calling.
And there's nothing wrong with that. So I think, it's definitely important to pray and to see if this is, something that, if this is a seed that God plants in your heart and waters it and, see if it grows and see if it blossoms. And if not, then if you want to help and serve in another way, there are plenty of opportunities. I guarantee that any ministry in your area would be glad to take, if you want to put together gift bags 1 month for them, or you could send monetary donations or bake a cake for outreach one night if you have a ministry in your area that's already operating. So there are all kinds of ways to get involved if you don't want to go into the club.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reality is that there are so many moving parts to a ministry like this. Like, if you had a team of 20 girls who wanted to go into the clubs, but no one was able to give financially or pack gifts or write thank you cards, then you can't go into the club with nothing,
Right. And I think it's important too that, as you guys are the ones going in, I mean, like you said, it takes time to build that. And if you have somebody different going in every week from your ministry, that doesn't make sense. Like, you guys need, I would think, somebody committed going in consistently so they learn, to trust you guys.
Yes.
Whereas the people behind the scenes, that could go, come in and go out.
Yes. And we cannot underestimate the importance of the people who work behind the scenes, because without them, we would be going into the clubs with nothing in our hands, and no one would be praying for the work that God's doing there and that kind of stuff. So it's so important to have that behind the scenes team. So if somebody wants to get involved in a ministry like this, I definitely recommend praying. Seeing how you can get involved in your city also.
I love that you brought up prayer, because I think prayer is another kind of behind the scene, not only praying for whether you should get involved, but praying for the ministry and the girls and the clubs. Like, what specifically would you like for people to pray for?
The thing that we want prayer for right now is that these clubs would remain open to us, and keep allowing us to come in, that they would get to know us better, that our relationships with them would grow, with the managers and with the girls. Ultimately, we would love to move the relationships with the girls outside of the clubs to the point where we're taking them out for coffee or meeting them for dinner or being invited to their kids' birthday parties. Like, that's what we really want to get to, because there's only so much that can happen in the clubs because they're working.
Mm-hmm.
So we would love to get to the point where we can have contact with them outside of the clubs. So that's something that we're always working toward. And when God allows that, we'll be ready for that. So we're excited for that time when it comes. But that's probably the biggest prayer right now. And just that these girls know that they are loved. Like, that is why we do this. That is why God has called us to do this, is that they just need to know they're loved.
I love that. I just love that, the name Forever Loved. I mean, I think that's something I would love to wear a t-shirt that said Forever Loved. I think every woman, needs to know that and to be sure of that. And I love that you guys are going in and telling them this.
Yeah. It's wonderful. I love this ministry, and outreach nights are my favorite nights of the month. So,
well, that's awesome. I love that. It's a good fit, a good match. Who knew?
Yes, I know.
Yeah,
isn't it crazy?
So it almost seems so out of left field that it's like, of course it's God, because I would have never come up with this myself.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. Well, do you have a way for people to, I know it's kind of a weird sort of ministry because it is such relationship based and whatever, but do you have like an email newsletter or a Facebook page or anything that you're doing to keep people?
We do. We have a Facebook page called Forever Loved SC, and that's where we put out updates. We'll ask for some very general prayer requests on there because we want to protect the confidentiality of the ladies. So we'll put some general prayer requests on there. Or if we have a need, we need a driver this week, or we need someone to bake a cake this week, or that kind of thing, we'll put that out there. So you can like the Facebook page, and if anybody wants to get involved and serve with Forever Loved, they can message us on there, and we'll get back to them right away with how they can go about serving.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing about this. It's so interesting, and I pray that God blesses it and just really helps you guys out.
Thank you so much for having me. I love talking about it, and I'm always excited to share what God's doing.
All right. Thanks so much, Morgan.
Thank you.
Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. What I love about Morgan's story is actually the simplicity of it. God brought to light this opportunity through a post, and then she moved on it and is using what she has, where she is, to show God's love to other people. I mean, I know I try to make things so complicated sometimes, but what could be more simple than setting aside some intentional time to give some gifts away and to build relationships with other women? I mean, I just love that Morgan is just so chill about the whole thing. I mean, y'all, I have never been to a strip club myself, and I'll be honest, I would be so nervous about how that would go down. But I love that Morgan is doing that clearly without any hesitation. And I love that her goal is for the women working there to really know God's love for them, because as we know, God's love can change everything. And I want to take a minute as we close to pray for Morgan and her ministry. Lord, I thank you for Morgan and her willingness to go into the places that a lot of us would not go. And I just pray that you would bless her ministry, that you would bring people alongside of her that would be willing to give sacrificially so that the work can be done even more than it is now. Thank you for the open doors that you've given to them so far, and I just pray that you would continue to open doors and open relationships and build those relationships. And Lord, just shine your light so brightly through Morgan and the women working with Forever Loved SC. I just pray your blessing on them, and just bring people alongside of them to work and to minister to these women. And I just pray for the woman that might be listening, that might feel a pull to do something like this in her own town. I just pray that you would give her courage to be able to do that, bring her resources, and just let her step out in faith and show the people around her your love. Just thank you for what you're going to do. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, guys, one thing I wanted to share with you this week about is something that I saw on Instagram, and it's really cool. There's a group out of Texas that is doing a Bible study this fall, and they are actually using the episodes of Feathers as their content, and then they are gathering each week to have discussions about them. And I think that is just so cool. If you listen to the God-Centered Mom podcast with Heather McFadden, I think she has some groups that are doing the same thing. So I think it's amazing because it's a free resource, and it takes less than an hour of your time to prepare, and then you can get around and discuss it. So I love that idea. I wanted to put that out there for anybody that might want to do a group with your people. I think that's so cool. So, guys, thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate your time this week. So blessed to be able to do this podcast, and glad we're here together. Just another reminder for you that you can get the show notes over at featherspodcast.com or abidingministries.net/podcast. And make sure to follow us over on Instagram and Facebook at Abiding Ministries. We'd love to have you there. All right, guys, that is it for this week. Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you next week on Feathers.